introduce myself. I'm a painter, and I do mainly portrait painting. So I do a variety of different types of portrait painting. I do a classic. This is the classic portrait, which is acrylic on canvas, which is more like this. And what I do is I do a series of photographs of the person, and I work from those photographs to do an actual painting. And when I do this type of painting, I work like I used to work as a makeup artist, which was my profession before. I feel like I capture the essence of the person with a flesh tone. And I've got this ghost-like image, and I work up and build it up. So I don't actually use drawing in that type of portrait. I'm going to start work now because this is a little more of an unconventional type of portrait. And what I'm going to show you is this young woman in this image here had asked me her parents had asked me to do a portrait of her together with her best friend for her 21st birthday. So I did a photo session with both of the models where I painted them. I actually body painted them and photographed them. This is a little like, I have actually painted onto this photograph, but this is rather like what I would do. I would have them move around and paint their bodies. Maybe we'd have music. I'd paint it's just shoulders, arms and shoulders. They're not, the person's not necessarily naked. They are, this is just the shoulders. I'll explain more about that one because I want to get to, so I have these images. I have a lot of images and I do laser copies, not inkjet, because that sort of can wash away. I do laser copies, and then I play around with the copies. I tear them or cut them or whatever. Here I found to do this today. I just went and looked at the images that I had and decided to work with what I had. And I make a decision about the sizes of the heads and what looks best. And she has a big head here. So I'm going to cut a piece off. Maybe I'll just tear it off. It doesn't really matter if it's ragged as far as I'm concerned. Some people prefer to do things much neater. I'm a rather messy artist, I must admit. So, as you'll see from my brushes, and here I have, it's actually heavy gel that I'm going to use for this, but you can use wallpaper paint, wallpaper glue as well, if you prefer. I'm going to do this as quickly as possible so that you have to make sure you get the edges done well, and I'm sure other people have an easier way of doing this, but put in a little bit of it. I'm going to set it up here and flatten it as much as possible to get the bubbles out. Although I don't worry too much about the bubbles because it can sometimes add to the piece because I cut them. This wooden board happened to be painted, which I rather like to do it onto the top of a painted piece. Let's put this one on. I'm going to be painting on top of this at some point. I think what I would, now I'm going to let it dry. Normally what I would do is let this dry, then go over it with another couple of layers of this gel to protect it. And then if I don't like the paint, the acrylic paint, if it's all dry, if I don't like the acrylic paint that I put on top, I can always wipe it off. But I'm going to, for speed's sake, I'm going to just paint on top of the image. Let me show you a little the portraits, or what you can do with this type of image. And what I'm showing you is people, because as a portrait painter and as a previous, makeup artist in my past life, I love people. I really, really love people, and that's how I got into this, because I wanted to, first of all, doing makeup, I wanted to make people happy, do their makeup, make them see themselves in a different light. And as a portrait painter, it's the same thing. I like to capture and bring out something that is in the, that is in the person. This is one of the very first paintings I did. I do a lot of children, and this is actually my daughter, and it's the same thing. I would see my daughter, and I'd want to capture the way she was in that particular moment on canvas. And the photograph's not the same. I think a painting is more timeless, and you can actually bring out certain things that you can't see in the photograph. So this is a classic, what I call my classic acrylic on canvas, and one of those. And I have lots of portraits which you can see on my site, but then this is another classic portrait, which is an acrylic on canvas, and which is a pretty sort of toned down one. I showed you this originally to explain how I put down the foundation. It's, as I would do the makeup, I'd choose the color that would enhance this actual skin tone or match the actual skin tone that I see, or in the case of a painting, it's more or less accentuating what you find beautiful in that skin tone. And this is actually my daughter that I just showed you, and she has a slightly yellow tinge to her skin, which is different to mine, and I just love it very much. It's sort of yellow, you think, like olivey color. This also, now this is a painting, this is a sort of an acrylic on canvas painting, which is, once again, I thought I'd bring my favorite pieces, and obviously my favorite pieces are of my daughter. This one I did in the method of painting. I had painted her face for a demonstration. I'd done what I call freestyle makeup, and I'd painted it. So I had some photographs. I tried to take some quick photographs when I do that type of makeup demonstration, and I work from the photograph. In other words, I just use it as a reference. I mean, I don't try to copy it. I just use it as a reference if I manage to capture the shape, the colors, and then do this. I do this in a fairly classic way. Whoops. I use this type of stroke. I use the same brushes that I use for the painting. I use on the body. These are brushes that I've actually had, that I found probably in the early 90s, that I love, which I just don't seem to be able to replicate. I mean, the first painting I ever did, I wanted to capture light. I wanted to do a big painting, and I had a few drinks, and I was sitting in my living room, and this is when I lived in New York, and I had this fantastic old 50s light that sent out blue light and violet light and this type of thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I would love to have that on the wall all day, So I went out. I couldn't find a canvas big enough. I bought 2 canvases. I didn't even know you could prime canvases. I didn't even know you had to prime canvases to paint on them. I put the 2 canvases together against a wall, one on top of the other. And I thought, and I got brushes. I didn't have ones this big. I just looked at the normal paintbrushes, and I said, well, how on earth am I going to do this? I mean, how do I do those big strokes with that? And because I lived in New York, I went on Canal Street. I used to spend a lot of time down there. It used to be fantastic when Pearl Paint was there. And I brought a big old broom. And I took the broom, and I mixed the thing, and I mixed the paint colors I wanted, and I took the broom and I soaked it, and I didn't soak it too much. I kept it fairly dry, but I soaked it with the color, and I just went, and that's how I started painting. So even for my portraits, I tend to use fairly big brushes, and I do go back and do details, obviously, but I begin everything, let me see, I'm sort of begin everything with these big brushes. I'll show you a little on here. Now this is a little different. This is a different type of portrait. It's what I call it's a mixed media portrait. And I have done, this is Carol Radzul. I do a photo session, the same thing, where I paint the person, I photograph them, and she has the best ones. This is one of the leftovers. I'm going to transform it, although it has a resin finish. So a resin finish is a little difficult to work with after it's done, but I'm going to experiment and try to figure out what to do. With this type of portrait, I think the most important thing about portraiture is I find, like I was saying about loving people, having this love for people, I think is when you're doing a portrait, you have to find that love for the person. Say if you're doing a child, you have to find the love for the child, like a mother's love. And if it's for an adult, you have to find that something special about them, and you have to love them for what you're seeing in them, and then you put that onto the canvas. And I must say, especially with children, I've always had parents who've had one child painted. They've always come back and had me paint the next and the next and the next. So I love big families. If somebody has 5 daughters, that's the best. Let's see. Let me talk about this type of piece again that I'm working on there, and then we'll finish it off. So here are some smaller pieces that are done where I painted the person and I incorporated painting into the photo, a little like this. So this is these are results of what you would get here. Now, these particular pieces have a story behind them because I was working on a book. This was Makeup for Ageless Beauty, so let me see if I can find Kim Alexis in here, because this is actually Kim Alexis, who was a top model in the 80s and who's still out there a lot. And I was photographing her for this book about 11 years ago. 10 years ago. No, 10 years ago. Let me see if I can. There we are. So here she is. So I asked her, obviously I'd only ever worked with her as a makeup artist, and for this book I was doing the photographs, and I wanted to have fun, and I wanted to, these are young women who I worked with in the 80s and 90s and who I really, really enjoyed working with, but our paths don't cross very often, obviously. There's so many people I worked with. So it's nice to reconnect, and I felt like reconnecting, doing a photograph. I wanted to reconnect and give them a new experience. And this is a new experience, let me tell you. Everybody who gets painted tells me it's a fantastic experience. It's a lot of fun. So for instance, with Kim, I asked her, of course some people don't want to be painted like this, but I asked Kim if we could do a photo session like this, and she said yes. And actually, and so I painted, and she was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And you know why? When you work as a makeup artist, you work with so many models, you think, oh yeah, so-and-so's beautiful, there's this, there's that. But I think it's only the photographer who realizes why these girls are actual top models. I mean, this is Carol Alt, and this is her on the cover. And this is the series I did with her when I was making the book. I should do another book with this and that next to it, next to each other. So let me show you. Yes. This probably isn't as dry as it should be, but I'm going to try to do this in a way that you might, I'll show you, I'll take a brush that's maybe not too big, and I'll work with the colors a little bit. These colors that are in the painting. I'm not going to finish this today, but what you can do is follow me on Instagram, and then you might see the finished piece. So I moved to the Berkshires a year ago, and I must tell you, I really love it. I'm very, very, very thankful. I love being here. And let's see if I can, this is going to be a challenge. It's just really to give you an idea of how I do the strokes. Yeah, obviously I'd, be looking at it and trying to I'm using people because, that's my, that's who I am, and I like painting people. But you can incorporate people into beautiful landscape photographs too. When you're doing this, it doesn't have to be all about people. And I think it's more following what you love. That's in the long winter nights. I mean, I'm used to long winter nights because I'm originally from the north of England. So it's actually going out today and finding frost all over my car reminded me very much of my childhood in the 50s when I would go out to the mini minor of my parents, and they'd have to warm the car up, defrost the car, do all of this type of thing. I don't know. I think weather seems to have maybe got better, but so it was very very interesting coming out this morning to, like I said. So this is actually, you can see here it's bubbling, but that's because I didn't wait until everything was dry. But it's okay because I can peel it off and do something else on there. I think let me have a look at it. Let me turn it around and see if I want to go over anything else at the moment. I think I might leave it like that for the moment. These pieces, what I did to seal everything and to give them a different finish, like these pieces I then pour resin on. But if you're going to pour resin on them, you have to really make sure that everything's sealed well. So I often do sort of 3 coats of this to make sure that it's very, very well sealed, because if you pour the resin and it's not well sealed, then the resin goes into the copy that you have, or into the, whatever you have, and destroys it a little bit. So you get blotchiness, which isn't good. So then, let me look about, I think everything, when I would do makeup, the first thing, I'd like the model to feel good from the beginning. So I would do I do put a massage with almond oil to get her relaxed before the photographer took her over and started doing her photograph, so that she'd feel good. So you'd make her relaxed. She could come in with a whole load of problems that she'd had that morning with her boyfriend or whatever, and you'd say, okay, this is it, and so make you feel good. And then at every stage of the makeup, I would try to make her feel good, and I'd try to make her look good. So sometimes the photographer would say, I need her in 10 minutes. So what can I do to her face that would make her look good in 10 minutes? And then sometimes I'd have 2 hours or 3 hours to do the makeup. So I would always try to do something that would immediately make her look good and that I could build on. And so the painting is a little bit the same. When I paint, I start to do something that looks good from the beginning. It looks good, and then I build on it. So doing the base is very, very, very important. I can't really correct it. If I haven't managed to capture the essence or use pictures that capture, if I've done photograph, like when I do the selection of the photographs to use in an art piece, if I haven't used something that's actually captured what I find beautiful, or the essence or the spirit of the person, then it'll never work. I have to get that from the beginning. So like I said, going in there with the foundation, going in there with the, then I have to, I think I have to wind down now. I like to interact with people. Just tell you a story, but it's actually a makeup story first, just to end off with. When I had my Art of Beauty by Linda Mason in Soho, New York, I used to have young women come occasionally, because it was pretty expensive, and have me do their makeup for a night out. And one day I had 2 young women come. It was a Saturday afternoon, and they were so much fun. We had so I said, why are you doing this? Why are you getting all made up for this? And they said, we're going out tonight, we're looking for husbands, and we're going to an event that's an all-men event. It must have been like butterfly catching or bird watching or something like this, and it was a big dinner. And we laughed again, and we laughed again at their method of finding men. And they went off, and one of the young women called me the following day, and she said, Linda, what am I going to do? She said, I found the man I'm going to marry. I was saying, and I can't redo the makeup. So I said, put your makeup on and come back, and I'll fix it. So she went away. So she came by. She had her makeup on, and I fixed her makeup. I said, the only thing is, 6 months later, you have to call me. No. If when you're getting married, I want to do the makeup for your wedding, so you have to call me. And 6 months later, she called me to do the makeup for her wedding. So I feel like art and makeup are combined, because the pleasure that a portrait can give you, a portrait of a loved one, of a child, of even yourself, that memory is rather like going out, and it's uplifting. It's uplifting. So That's why I do my makeup every day, because it's like doing a little painting on myself. I think, what else can I say? I have a few copies of this particular book left, Makeup for Ageless Beauty, and I'll put them online actually on my website. And the same thing, you can message me for commissions if you're interested in a portrait commission. And you can, what can I say? Just thank you for giving me your time, and thank you, Sherry, for inviting me here, and thank you to the station. You're wonderful. It's wonderful to have it, that you have this in the Berkshires. It's really great. Thank you.